Welcome to the Senior Hour. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host,
Dr.
who's
Jean
here.
Dorio, out of traffic.
Yes, on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. And our guest this morning is Dr. Maura Kalani, who is a palliative care doctor. And we've been talking about the real lack of accommodation for seniors in the ER rooms. I think it's probably nationwide, with the exception of the hospital in New York. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes.
It was at it's based out of Mount Sinai, which has a huge geriatric focus and is actually where palliative care has evolved, and is the leading providers in geriatric and palliative care medicine.
And it's interesting because you'd think most hospitals would realize that we have a growing senior population. We're all living longer than anyone ever anticipated. I mean, my parents were old when they died at age 70, and that was in the early 80s.
Right.
And I always thought, okay, then I'm going to die when I'm 70.
Interesting.
Because they did.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's in the genes sort of
70
thing.
is like the new 50.
Oh, it is.
But you're not even
It
70
really-
yet, Barb. You're not even close.
No, I'm going the other way.
Well, congratulations. But your quality of life, though, is different from their quality of life. When they were getting toward the end, you know, they were slipping off the edge, whereas, you know, there's no end in sight for you, Barb. You just keep going.
Well, I intend to keep
You're going into
too.
your next decade soon,
Absolutely.
and
Hoo-hoo.
you know, with that, you know, it's your quality of life. I see it. It's already continuing.
Oh, it is. And I'm going to maintain it if I have anything to do with it, which I do.
Just don't go to the emergency room, right?
No, I don't intend to. I really don't. But it's interesting because as I was talking to my trainer at the gym this morning, she was saying that
That's fabulous.
Talking to my trainer at the gym.
Yeah. Well, but I know me well enough
Yes.
to know that if I don't have a trainer, I won't go.
You won't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There
You
you
have
go.
to make the appointment.
Yes, I'm paying for a trainer to work with me. And she's fantastic. She really is. She knows my limitations, and she pushes me. I mean, we had those stair-step things up about this high. I was stepping up on it and stepping down, stepping up and stepping down. And each time I stepped up, I had to push this 5-pound ball up into the air.
Interesting.
Whoa!
Wow.
Yeah. It was very interesting.
Sounds pretty
Has
rough
me-
to me.
No, well-
But you know, it's earning your quality of life. I'll take that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as I was telling her, we were talking about life. She said, you know, at your age, you're doing more better than some of my 30-year-old clients.
Yes.
And I said, really? But you know, there are quite a few seniors at the gym. Most of them in the mornings
Yes.
are seniors
And not in the emergency room.
and
So-
not in the
and
emergency
that's-
room. In the
doesn't
gym
it say a
working
lot?
out.
It
Yes.
says a lot.
It really does.
Yeah.
You know,
Because my parents both died at age 70. My mother died of a massive brain tumor, which they did not detect until she passed out and they had to take her to the hospital. Duke University. They didn't find it. They
Well, you know, in
absolutely
those
didn't
days, I
find
mean,
it.
you know,
in the early 80s, they didn't have
the CAT scan
the-
even.
no,
I mean,
no.
And I think I told my story about how, you know, I was at a hospital here in UC Irvine, and you know, it was, you know, I got to use a CAT scan. It was,
Yeah.
you know,
That's
the first patient, you know, we did find a tumor in their brain, but physical exam bared that out for us.
Yes.
But we still confirmed it with this CAT scan, this new
course.
Yeah.
tool that we now had.
And they
So
didn't have it
they
back
didn't have
then
that.
because they thought that my mother was demented.
Huh.
That's something.
Yeah, she had dementia, and that's what the doctors were treating her for, was dementia or Alzheimer's, whichever one it was. And I think it was dementia back then, and because she couldn't take care of herself. She would go days and days and days without bathing. And it wasn't until my dad called. He said, "Babs," he said, "you've got to come home. We need you here." And so I made arrangements, and I went home for over a week, and made arrangements for my mother to be put in a home, because, and when I went there, her nails were this long.
Which is about 6 inches.
6 inches long. They were all curved down.
Wow.
And she couldn't undress herself or dress herself. She couldn't do anything. And my father was the 24-hour caregiver.
How long after you got there and made the transition for your dad, how long was it that then she passed away? How long?
We put her in the hospital in, I think it was November. She passed away in December.
Oh, wow.
And my father, 2 months later.
Wow.
But I think he died of a broken heart.
Yes.
He did. He had, I think he had a stroke finally.
Yeah.
But it was caused by, because every single day he would go to that nursing home and be with her.
Right.
Because they'd always been together, except when he was in the service. But they had spent so many years together, just doing for each other. And he couldn't handle taking care of her.
Yeah, physically, he couldn't
Physically,
handle it. And
he
it's a
couldn't do
mental
it.
thing too.
And
And sometimes a financial thing.
and
for some of our
she
patients.
was, she would fight him. "I can do this." Well, she never did it.
Right.
Yeah. Yep,
And it
yep.
was a very, very sad
How
situation.
long were they married for?
They got married in, let's see, 1933, I think.
And what year did your
And
mom? What year is it?
83.
83.
So they were like 50 years.
So that's 50 years.
Well, that's a romance.
Yeah.
Romantic.
Oh, it was. And they went
Novel
through
for
the
you.
Second World War together,
Wow.
Wow. You should write
He
about
was,
that.
oh, I am. I'm writing my autobiography.
Wow, that is cool.
Oh, that's
But
beautiful.
nowadays we have here in the state of California, I touched on this just earlier about the end of life law that we have here. It was enacted last year, but it's now in effect on June the 9th. And the Holy Cross has opted out
Yes.
of it, and so has Henry
Really?
Mayo. Yes,
Really?
Henry Mayo has too.
Well, we're a
Why?
Catholic institution, and
That's right.
And there are other
the sacredness
hospitals.
of life,
That's right.
as part of the
And the
ethical
VA
religious
hospitals
directives of the VA.
are excluded because they're federal.
Federal.
They're not state. This is a state. There's I think 3, 4, or
Federal
5
government.
other states that also have enacted the laws. Oregon and Washington and I think
Montana.
it's Montana and
Vermont. Yeah.
are the ones that also have it. But it was enacted here, and one of our residents here was going through a cancer, and she was involved with getting the law initiated and passed. And I think it's important that our seniors understand. We have palliative and hospice care, but we do have an end of life option, and people have to start becoming familiar with it. The doctors aren't themselves even familiar with it, but there's certain criteria that one needs to meet for it. And then there are issues related to ethics and morals and finance. And is it considered suicide because people like to label it suicide? These are labels that we have to decide in our society how we're going to adapt, and who gets to adapt in these when they're facing certain problems.
Absolutely. And it's not just hospital settings that, that aren't participating in this act, but there are pharmacies who are the dispensers of medications who are not participating in this act as well. And it really, it goes back to what services are available to these particular individuals who are ailing, who are truly suffering at the end of life. And one of my contentions when this law came out yes, there is this option for people, beautiful. But what is more important is that we need to provide options such as palliative care and hospice, and provide more extensive hospice level of care for these patients, because oftentimes patients feel exacerbated, or they feel fed up with the end of life process, and they turn towards an end of life care act or physician assisted suicide to help end their life. Could this be a premature act? I don't know. But if they had better hospice services, perhaps this may be something that needs to be focused on as well.
Oh, absolutely. I think,
Our hospice benefits are pretty meager. They're not very encompassing, and that's where I think we need to put some attention to as well.
And we have to line these options up for our patients, and that really it's come to our patients piecemeal. That's the sad part, and I think that by looking at each one and putting it out on a list. I'm looking at my options for Medicare secondary insurance.
Yes.
And actually the government has these check boxes of all, like 37 in the state of California, of what it has and what you can get if you purchase this secondary insurance. Well, as we get older, we need to have the check boxes.
Yes.
We need to know where we can go, what our options are, an algorithm or whatever they call it.
Right.
We can look at it if this is what you want, and look at the issues. I mean, there are many. Not every option is what a patient will want or the family will want, and that's okay. But then if you don't have an option, there should be another one that you can turn to where you get viable, life-saving or life-helping, I should say, quality that allows people to go make their choices and allows them to move forward in life and at the end of life.
Absolutely.
Well, now has the hospice care fallen off compared to what it used to be?
It's not that it's fallen off. It's becoming more regulated by the government, especially the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services are auditing a lot more hospices for their services. Some very well-known hospices who have been really leaders in the industry, such as San Diego Hospice, were audited pretty significantly to the point where they had to close, which was a shame. And so, we're dealing with patients who are terminally ill. We're not doing frivolous medical care. We're providing truly, well-deserved end-of-life care. And my sense is that we need to provide this particular vulnerable amount of patients the best care possible.
Right.
Well, it's interesting. My sister-in-law had failing kidneys from many, 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 many years of alcohol. And my husband and I moved her to Santa Clarita, and she lived in one of the senior complexes around here. And she started getting ill with her kidneys, and the doctor said, okay, we need to do dialysis on you. I'm not going to do it more than once a week. She just wasn't going to.
Yes.
So I would take her into the dialysis unit up here and sit with her. And then she got progressively worse because she wouldn't go on more frequent dialysis. So she finally ended up in Henry Mayo, and they called in Hospice Care. They were incredible. Those nurses who came in there to take care of Lee were unbelievable.
I know.
Absolutely unbelievable. And this was in the early 80s. This was 84, I believe, 84, 85. But they were so good. They took such good care of her. I mean, if she just opened her mouth, they were right there, It was wonderful. It really was. And I didn't feel uncomfortable leaving her when I had to go do something.
Right,
right. Because I knew they would be there to take care of her. And they were there almost 24 hours a day, There was very little time that they weren't. The shifts would change.
Right.
And when the shifts would change, I would sit in, to take up the slack. But they were incredible. They really were. And now it sounds like they're not as incredible as they used to be.
Well, they, Henry Mayo, everybody does a different job.
Yeah.
And, what essentially happened was, we knew what we needed, we put it on paper, and then unfortunately, there were some loopholes, and people came in and took advantage of that.
Yes.
And financial advantage, and actually started ripping the system off and the patients off.
Yes.
And that's why they've had to investigate. And that's, when you launch programs, government launches programs, you need to know what the ramifications are, the complications are, the side effects are. You have to know these things, as just like I said earlier about what we as doctors do. We recognize these things, but we're trained to think that way, whereas government isn't trained, and all of a sudden they initiate programs and they realize, oh, somebody might be ripping us off, and then they investigate and they slam people, and then they put questionable wording in these things, and then the agencies in San Diego get shut down, and and people are counting on them,
Yeah.
but yet now they're gone.
Yeah.
So we need to do better. I think it's important that we have hospice, we have palliative care, we have hospice, we have end of life care, but we define that in a much better way so that people know when they're heading in a direction how it's going to run, how it's going to be paid for, and making sure that all the ducks are lined up so that we can assure that it's seamless as we move forward. Unfortunately, when we do our work as doctors, I think it's pretty seamless. I mean, rarely is it not. Whereas I think we all scream about government, and I do, but it needs in some respects it does pretty good, and relative to what we do, in healthcare and for our seniors, it's not up to par, and it hasn't hit that bar that needs to be hit. And when we all give our input, and they look at it and say, let's try this, or let's sort this out, let's smooth it out so it's better for patient care, then we're going to have provide better care. But that's not what's happening right now, unfortunately.
No, it is, and it's unfortunate. It really is.
So we're moving in different directions. We're providing ideas in society that I think are have to be looked at, but they really have to be sharpened and honed to where we all say, hey, now this is perfect. But I don't really want to go back to that CAT scan when we didn't have it and say, times before that were great. When we have palliative and hospice and end-of-life care, I want to be able to say we had it, we developed it, and we put it in there and it works.
And it's
I don't want to look
beautiful.
back and say, I don't want to say that, gee, we did all this stuff and it took us 25 years to figure it out. We don't need that. It's
No,
not
but
no CAT scan of 1980. It's
No, but it does work. It really
does.
does.
It does
It really
work,
does work.
but it's not working at the level it should yet.
Well, that's
our
true.
problem.
Yes.
That's our problem.
Yeah, and we need to take a break, don't we? Eagle eye over there. Did you see that? I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host, Dr. Jean Dorio, on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. Welcome back to the Senior Hour. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host, Dr. Jean Dorio, on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. And we've been speaking with Dr. Maura Kalani, who is a palliative care doctor. And we were talking about ER rooms, not having enough space, enough room for seniors who come in, and seniors have to wait in long, long lines before they are treated.
Talked about not having enough personnel and providers. Talked about end-of-life care. There's so many things that, we are dealing with, because this is all a part, Mawa, isn't it all a part of that end of life for our and quality of life for our seniors? And really, as you go toward end of life and you are at end of life, you still want to have quality.
Absolutely. And it's regardless of what age you're at. And it really is based on each individual's perspective as what defines quality for them. We're not here as providers to determine that for them. We need to be able to sit with our patients and families, listen to who they are, who they were as active individuals, and really try to address functionality and trying to get those individuals back to the level that they would like to be at in a realistic fashion, of course.
Right.
I just had a patient a couple months ago who really just wanted to be home. And we needed to honor that.
Absolutely.
And
that's critical.
The family needed to honor that. And they had to rally around this individual to gather the forces together to get him back into his home setting so that he could be as happy as he could be, even though he was at his end of life.
Yes, and that is so critically
And it was
important.
beautiful.
Do you know how many seniors do any of us know that say, gee, I'm at end of life, please put me in a nursing home?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Or I'd
no,
love to
no.
be in the hospital.
Yeah, nobody wants that. They want to be at home, surrounded
Yes,
by
they
their
do.
family, their pets, all the mementos of life that they've had. And I had a patient in the other day, and his daughter takes care of him.
Yeah.
And he's a World War II veteran, and he had a stroke, so it was hard for him to express. And there was a question how much he understood versus how much he could say, but I established in front of the family that he was understanding everything. But I like to know about their personal life, and here he was, because I salute our veterans, and he acknowledged that he was a veteran, and he said he was in the Navy, but the thing that he wasn't able to say that he was at Pearl Harbor the day on December the 7th, 1941, and survived.
Wow.
And my face was like your face.
Wow.
It was wow.
Oh my goodness.
And it was, I just wanted to hear that story,
Wow.
and when his daughter says he wants to be at home, yes, I have to honor that.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
you do. And Maura, you spoke a few minutes ago about pets.
Yeah.
Pets are critical
Yeah.
to seniors or end of life.
Absolutely.
And if they go into a nursing home or whatever
That's it.
hospital, they can't take their pets
Nope.
with them.
No.
And that is an integral part of their life.
Yes.
I know we have 2 cats.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
And cats don't travel, so
No, they don't.
yes.
They squawk and squeak and carry on like crazy, because I know I have to take one more of them to the vet to have her shots.
But
But they're almost 13 years old now. 2 little sisters.
80-90% of our seniors pass away in a hospital or
Yes.
in a nursing home. And in the next few years, we need to change that.
Yeah.
So 80 to 90% pass away at home.
Yes.
That's what we need to do.
And then you have to have in-home care insurance,
Yeah.
because
Well,
otherwise
we'll find government. We'll see if government will
No.
pay for it.
Yeah, don't
Good
even
luck with that one.
Barbara.
government. Well, we have long-term care insurance.
Yes.
And
yes.
it isn't cheap.
No.
Fortunately, we can afford it
Right.
and pay for it every year. And I was looking at it because when Russ went into the hospital about a year ago, wasn't it now? And I'm thinking, oh, okay, he's not going to want to stay in there, so let's see what we have in the long-term care insurance. And it pays for quite a bit, even though it
does.
doesn't pay for everything.
No, but I mean, I've promised my folks to keep them in the home setting as long as possible, and that's what we did. Is we decided on long-term care insurance as well.
And it will help.
yeah.
Absolutely will
Yeah.
help.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Really will.
So Maura Kalani from Holy Cross Hospital, palliative care physician. We've talked about honoring our patients, especially at end of life. And I think, we need to put that out there so everybody understands, what needs to be done, government or not. Barbara, right?
Yes.
Government or not, we need to honor them. So let's get
Absolutely.
that ball rolling. Once again, thanks for being on the show
Thank
today.
you so much. It's always fun.
Great
Yes,
discussion.
it is.
We are sponsored by Advanced Audiology and SCV Home Care. Listen to us next week on the Senior Hour. Now go and enhance your quality of life.
Yes.